Welcome back. Our last session is going to be a gentle one. We gave ourselves an extra 15 minutes, which is really good. In the afternoon, you need to ease back into things. Marmy asked me to teach you the melody that I use to chant the mantras. And Kempo has a mantra chant that he uses that's really beautiful that we're going to put up on the website. But I found that this one works very well with my voice. He has a lower voice than I do. But I can do the other one when I'm chanting with him, but I still haven't quite mastered it well enough when I chant by myself. So the melody that I used, I learned from listening to a CD with a Tibetan nun chanting. And I think it's that the fact that it was a women's voice helped me out a little bit. So just listen for a few moments and I'll chant the 10-syllable mantra. And then I'll chant the long life mantra. And at some point, if you feel like jumping in, just go ahead and jump in. Just remember the tune here for a second. Okay. Om tare tu re so ha. 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 And then the long life mantra, I had to really make this one up myself, but I based it on the tune that I heard from the Tibetan nun. And that one I sing, chant like this. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. Om tare tu re mama ayurjana punye pitankure so ha. So that's how I chant when I'm chanting at home by myself. And you can find other tunes and melodies of this. Many, many beautiful recordings have been made. But you sort of need to find one that works with your voice. Another thing that I like to do is sometimes I chant Om Tare Tu Re Soha as a lullaby. And so while I'm chanting, I'm imagining that I'm a mother chanting this to her children and chanting this as a way of comforting them and creating a sense of peace. So you can try that. I find it to be an incredibly powerful practice to do that. And so, vary the feeling that you can chant this with. But it really, really works for me to chant as a lullaby. And imagine that as I'm chanting this, it's just all this waves of comfort just going out, going out, going out. Oh, you want me to chant it as lullaby? It's just very soft. Actually, it's the same tune. It's just Om Tare Tu Re So Ha. 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 And as I'm doing this, what I'm thinking is I'm trying to tell through sound that everything is all right. It's never not been all right. And release your fear. And so that is actually what I'm singing to myself as well, that everything's okay, everything's okay, everything's okay, everything's fine, everything's fine. And this is actually related to a teaching where when you're entering Tara's mandala, you're entering what we would call a space of primordial purity, which means it's never not been all right. And so you're entering that view of reflecting back or reflecting outward this state of very deep inner peace where everything is taken care of, everything is nurtured. So that's why I came up at some point with this idea of chanting it as a lullaby. And when I do that, of course, my parents used to sing to me, so it really, really brings back to me a very primal feeling of being held, or at night, my father used to sing to me, and he was like 6'6", or he still is 6'6". He was a giant of a man, and he had such a gentle presence. So I have to really honor my father and my mother had a beautiful voice. So I mean, this singing really resonates with me, and I can still remember the songs that they used to sing to me when they'd put me to bed. So, as you practice, things come out of yourself that you make this practice your own. But that's kind of one of my lullabies. Tara as mother who's singing lullabies to, all of her children. So that is that. And thank you for asking, Marmy, because it really is a pleasure to share that. So wonderful. Things come up in teachings. You think that something's going to happen, and then something much more wonderful blooms than you could have possibly imagined. So now we're going to talk about the session conclusion, which is about the dissolution. And so just to remind you, at this point, we've generated the visualization of Tara. We've recited her mantras, her 10-syllable mantra, and the long life mantra, which we just sang and chanted a little bit together. And then we've also, in this sphere of Tara's mandala, and remember, she is known as the wish-fulfilling wheel, the wheel that is ever spinning and granting wishes. I think also the wish-fulfilling wheel has very much to do with subtle energy processes too, related to the chakras. So I think there's multiple meanings of it. But she's called the wish-fulfilling wheel. And so remember, there's this mandala, this sacred circle of energy. And so when we recite Tara's prayer, illustrious Tara, please be aware of me, remove my obstacles, quickly grant my excellent aspirations. You can imagine yourself at that point that you're like dropping a stone into water, and that out of that is radiating, you know how when you drop a stone into water, out of it radiates waves. And so in some ways, when you're doing Tara's prayer, you're dropping a stone of your aspiration into this pond, and you're allowing it just to radiate out. And then you can see how that is reflected back to you in your life. And so at this point, we're now dissolving Tara's mandala back into emptiness. And again, I talked about emptiness. Of one of the ways that I think about is the field of pure potential. Because emptiness has no absolute fixed form, it has the ability to manifest everything out of the pure potential that is there. And so at this point, though, we're dissolving our energy, and we're returning, in some ways, our practice to that field of emptiness and to that awareness that everything is interconnected. And so the dissolution process, I think, is a very beautiful one. And oftentimes, we're afraid of things dissolving. We have I think, a strong fear that relates to our fear of death, which is sort of a dissolution. And so in some ways, when I do the dissolution practice, I connect it very much to a preparation for death, to be honest with you. A preparation for letting go of everything. Letting go everything into the space of absolute interconnectedness and knowing that if you think about what I just talked about with primordial purity and with talking about that we actually are living in a Buddha field, we're living in a pure land, we're living in wisdom, we're living in intelligence. I mean, everywhere there's intelligence. Then it can allow us to relax a little bit and let go. So that when we come to the final dissolution process, which we call death, which in Buddhism is called the transition. It's called, stepping from one door through a door into another room. We can, at this point, we have to acknowledge that this current configuration of this physical body is going to need to be gently released, and then we will walk into the next mandala of our consciousness, of our mind, things like that. So when you do the dissolution process, you can use it as a way to reduce a little bit your fear of letting go of things. And I find that to be really powerful, because what is happening? Everything is dissolving into light. Everything came out of light. So certain Tara rose out of this field of light. She radiated light. And now that light is dissolving again into light. And so again, when we talked about this rainbow energy and rainbow, an aspect of the rainbow is being something that appears, yet we can't grasp and hold on to. It's impossible. That is in some ways also, we talked about that as the nature of reality, the nature of emptiness. And so Tara has appeared as this amazing rainbow. And now she's dissolving back into light, back into rainbow energy, and another configuration will come out of that. So that's how I look at the dissolution process. There are amazing teachings on dissolution in Tibetan Buddhism, which I am not qualified to teach, but they are amazing, profound teachings of great beauty, especially related to preparing for death. But this is already a taste of them, right here. So again, with the dissolution, we are acknowledging our interbeing with all phenomena, and we are placing Tara's energy of compassion, her love, in our hearts. So that is when we recite the lines, "Noble Tara dissolves into my heart center and protects me." That's at this point we're placing her awareness. So her love that we're placing in our hearts is ultimately her awareness of the union of emptiness and wisdom, which is what we call the awareness, wisdom, the awareness of emptiness, which is the awareness of interbeing. And why does that protect you from fear? Because really realizing deeply this, having an awareness of interbeing or interconnectedness, makes you reduce your attachment to certain forms or certain ways that things should appear, and allows you to relax into this space where things are arising because it's their nature to arise that way. It's the whole web of interbeing. So just because I love the squash, that Gary's seeds are making squash grow in Kim's garden, I'm going to go back to that again. We don't really need to do anything to create squashness. The essence of squash. It just is the nature of that seed to grow into squash. And so the same thing is with all of us. We just have this essence of love and compassion. That's what we are. And by having developed that essence of love and compassion, we have taken on an embodied form that has things like these wonderful arms that can reach and embrace somebody, that has things like these highly sensitive lips that can enjoy, munching on food, but can also enjoy kissing somebody. we're already embodied as love and compassion if you really think about our embodied form. And so many of us have been taught to not appreciate our forms, especially women. Speak from my own personal experience. I was taught to constantly trying to change my form, lose weight, shave the hair off my legs, do all those things. So, when I started to appreciate the amazing embodiment of the human form as being an expression of love and compassion and being an expression of interbeing, it completely changed my view of the nature of what it means to be a human being. And think about the mother. I don't have any children, and I am totally embarrassed about what age I was when I had this realization, so I'm not going to tell you about it, what age I was. But it took me a really long time to realize that, what happens with human beings when we bear our children, that we grow our children inside of ourselves. It's like an amazing garden in there, right? And that women, whatever they eat and whatever the vibrations of their thoughts, everything is actually creates this other human being. It took me so long to think about that that's the ultimate inner being, right? So Gary squash, if you gave it to a person who was a gal that was pregnant, she would be eating Gary's squash. She would get his absolute love for gardening. She would get the amazing garden energy that was in there. She would get all of that sunlight that comes through to make sun, all the earth elements, everything. And then that squash, when that mother eats it, then becomes the body and all the different aspects of that child. So when you really think about this, we are totally amazing beings. We have amazing configurations. And the essence of that really is love and compassion. It's interbeing. So again, when you're dissolving that into light, you're returning it to the suchness of what the life is. You're just returning to that natural state because everything is coming out of this openness. And this openness in this space is actually interwoven with all of the rainbow energy or the 5 elements, space, air, fire, water, earth. And that's going from space is the most subtle energy, of course, and moving up into earth being the most, what we would identify as the most gross or most solid form. But this is a continuum, right? So just as we arise out of some spark of life, we move through into a gross form, and then when we pass on, we release that gross energy and it moves back into space. So this is, I'm doing this, but it's like this, right? And it's probably every other direction in between, but this is the circle of life again. So again, this is Tara's mandala. So when we're doing this, we're dissolving all phenomena into Tara's mandala, into this recognition of this absolute interbeing. And then all of the phenomena, all these appearances dissolve into light, and that dissolves into Noble Tara, who is our representation of enlightenment, our wisdom mind, the most subtle nature of reality. And then that's dissolving into the form that you've arisen as your gross form, Kate or as Marmee or Martine, whoever. That's placing in your heart. And this whole awareness of interbeing in the cycle of life is what protects you from fear. And this is also in the part of the text when you are doing the mantra recitation and longevity practice and healing activities. When you say, energy streams forth from Tara's heart and body, I and all beings absorb this nectar of light and are cleansed and revitalized, obtaining the realization of deathlessness. What is the realization of deathlessness? The realization of deathlessness is the fact that it is impossible for something to become nothing. It's impossible. If you really think about it, at the most, you can't create something out of nothing. There's nothing there that something could be created. So something also can't become nothing. So our perception of death is a misperception in Buddhism. It is not seeing the full cycle of life. And that is why ultimately when we have the realization of deathlessness in this practice, it is because we have so realized, become so aware of this absolute impossibility of something to become nothing that we lose our fear of death. As we start seeing this web, this squash that becomes the child. And then eventually the form of that child also becomes the squash again. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I mean, we're constantly have these phrases and we just forget about it. And so we have a lot of fear. And I think one of the biggest fears that we have is of death, that we think we're really something and we think it's possible through death we can become nothing. And we are an appearance of something. And that appearance is not a permanent fixed appearance. So it's constantly being born anew, all the time. And even today, we've transformed today in so many ways that we can't even perceive it. So this is what the realization of deathlessness is, or at least it's how I understand it, how I've realized this idea of deathlessness. And so when you're dissolving Noble Tara into your heart center, she is the remover of fears, and her ultimate wisdom of the nature of reality is what protects you from the ultimate fear, which is in many of our cases, it's a fear of annihilation, which is also the fear of the ego, right? Ego is afraid it's going to be annihilated. If you have absolute interconnectedness, then you lose your identity and your ego is annihilated. And that's really not how it works. But that's what we have to keep on reminding ourselves and keep on realizing. So that's the session dissolution. And I'm going to just go back to my text because I jumped off of my teaching text. I'm going to arrive back here. There is something that I want to tell you that's in here. And I think that, so much of our struggle in life is, created by not recognizing ourselves in others and not recognizing ourselves in the environment and not recognizing, when I say ourselves, I'm not talking about a permanent self, but I'm talking about this light that is evolving, that we can see it reflected. We talked about seeing it reflected in other people's eyes. When you deeply connect with something, you see that same vitality that makes a tree grow. You can see that kind of in your own experience. In fact, you really can be grateful to trees for reminding you of being rooted and all their different qualities. They can really teach you things. That's kind of this interconnectedness. But when we fight against this, we're also fighting with what's just arising. We're fighting with the nature of reality as it is. And this causes us a lot of stress and struggle and fear. And it also drains us. This is like the absolute way, if you want to drain your vitality, just start fighting reality. It's a battle we will all lose. And I've done it enough. I've been battered and bruised enough that I'm really done with it. I hope as much as I can to stop fighting with reality. So when we dissolve Tara's energy, we're dissolving in some ways to an acceptance of life. We're dissolving, Tara's energy as the energy of accepting life as it is into our hearts. And that really can cause a great amount of relaxation, a great amount of peace. Because then we don't really have to do anything. There's nothing to create. There's no thought that we have to be about it. We can just really settle into this energy field, which I think is you can perceive in many, many different ways. And you can also just rest there. And so that is really the ultimate resting is when you are very, very, very sensitive and highly aware of the nature of reality and can settle into that. So that's part of the dissolution. So one of the things that my teacher always teaches me is that it's really good to just keep things simple. He tells me that all the time. It's because I have a great bent on, I love detail, I can go really deep into something, I can make up way too many stories about what should happen. I can get really involved in thinking that there's some perfection out there, that there's more to do. So I cannot tell you the amount of times he's told me to keep things simple. So at this point, I want to keep things simple. And so I'm just going to say that if you take one thing away from this retreat, I'd like to invite you to think of Tara and think of this Tara's mandala as a space of the open, kind heart. And that just simply keeping this open, kind heart in mind can really protect you from fear, but also can let joy arise. So if you need to boil Tara down, well, that's kind of an interesting visualization right itself. But if you really want to bring it down to its essence, to like what we're talking about with the Tom syllable, it really is the joyous heart, the open, kind heart. And so that's really, to me, I always say Tara is a gentle, joyous practice, because really, if I can just keep that energy kind of gently present for myself, I feel like I am in the presence of Tara. I feel like I am in the presence of the mother. I'm really in the presence of the feminine embracing energy that is, all around us. And I want to make completely clear that Tara herself taught on the ultimate level, we are neither male nor female. Jesus had a very strong teaching on this as well. And you can find that in the Bible when he was talking to the disciples about Mary Magdalene. And he was saying, they were saying something very similar that the Tara's detractors were saying to her, is you have to obtain enlightenment in a male form. And Jesus said, great, then I'll make her a male. And they looked at him and said, how can you make Mary Magdalene a male? And he said, well, if you can visualize this hand and have a concept of hand, then I can visualize her as a male and know that she is, as enlightened as the rest of you. So again, remember the power of your ability that when you visualize the kind open heart and know that it's there. That's how everything else is here too. So just keep that you have a tremendously powerful mind. Have a tremendously powerful mind that can manifest things. So start to develop a tremendously strong respect for that power and try to channel it in ways that expresses your energy to the fullest. So if you want to arise as the open, kind heart, then when you make that aspiration and you think about that, you are arising as that. When you want to arise as the most amazing grandmother of 3 new grandbabies, Marmee is arising as that. So that is really the power of Tara practice, she reflects back to us. She's the mother energy. She's the giver, the birth of the wisdom that creates all of the Buddhas. And what is that wisdom is to really understand this process of that how we visualize things, how we perceive things, that is our reality. So she starts changing us. And so the direction that I'm trying to go in with my Tara practice is just to have an open, spacious mind, an open, spacious heart, and joyfully embrace what comes into my life. Because when I do that, I really am joyful. I'm really, really happy, even when suffering is coming. There's still this joy of embracing the fact that at that moment, that's what's there. And there's wisdom in that. How many times have we learned something through deep suffering? And if we push that away, we don't have the opportunity of meeting that in a way that really transforms us. So you're around people like my teacher. People talk to him about their problems all the time. And yet he always, and you can see that, when they come up to him at a meditation retreat, he looks at them with such open eyes that he's right there at that time. And you know that they're probably going to tell him something that's really troubling them, or maybe it's something they're sharing that they're curious about, but he just meets it right there. So again, when you meet somebody who is really willing to be present, to be open, you can see this great connection, and there is a beauty in that. There's great joy. So that's kind of, for me, the essence of Tara is, this open, kind heart, this willingness to be present with what arises and not to reject it, to not pick or choose, to really not pick, either garbage or roses, but to see, again, this perspective that they're deeply intertwined. We can only know, what doesn't smell good to us based on what does smell good to us. But yet we're constantly rejecting certain things, not even being aware of the fact that we wouldn't even know what good smelling stuff is without the stuff that we go, oh my goodness, So that's this essence for me. And we have time to practice, and then we're done. But before we're done, I just want to thank Kim and Jeannie again for requesting these teachings. This is the first time I've taught a White Tara retreat. It's been a great honor, and I really thank you so much. I couldn't imagine a better place to teach a retreat for the first time. And thank you also for the incredible, incredible confidence that you gave me at the Guru Yoga retreat. Jeannie, you said, you have to teach White Tara. You need to teach White Tara. And you just said, come up and do it here. So again, I want to thank you so much for showing me a road that was open that I could walk on. And I want to thank Kim for always, he's bliss incarnate. So if you want to be joyful, walk into this house and eat his food. Look at his eyes. He's got the most beautiful eyes. So I want to both thank them before we finish practicing. Because once we finish practicing, we're going to dedicate the merit of the retreat. And at that point, after we dedicate, we're also going to symbolically close the energy of this retreat so that the next thing can spring up. So let's practice. So I and all sentient beings take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Tara, and Mandala. I and all sentient beings take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Tara, and her mandala. I and all sentient beings take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Tara, and her mandala. We're going to generate Bodhicitta 3 times for the benefit of all sentient beings. In order to obtain the state of perfection, I shall practice the sadhana of Tara. For the benefit of all sentient beings, in order to obtain the state of perfection, I shall practice the sadhana of Tara. For the benefit of all sentient beings, in order to obtain the state of perfection, I shall practice the sadhana of Tara. Prayer of the 4 boundless qualities 3 times. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be apart from the sublime bliss that is free from suffering, and may they remain in a state of equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be apart from the sublime bliss that is free from suffering, and may they remain in a state of equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be apart from the sublime bliss that is free from suffering, and may they remain in a state of equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. Front generation of White Tara. Om Maha Shunyata Jnana Vajra Sobhava Atma Ko Hung. In the space before me appears a white lotus with a moon disk upon it. The love and compassion of all the enlightened beings appear from this as noble wish-fulfilling Tara. She sits on a lotus and moon cushion, a luminous moon halo at her back. Youthful and radiant, her right hand gestures in an invitation to liberation. Her left hand, holding an utpala flower, indicates the protection of the three jewels, giving courage and assurance to those dominated by fear. Mantra recitation, longevity practice, and healing activities. Brilliant light radiates from the syllable tum within her heart, collecting back the essence of inexhaustible vitality and powerful blessings of body, speech, and mind. Energy streams forth from Tara's heart and body. I and all beings absorb this nectar of light and are cleansed and revitalized, obtaining the realization of deathlessness. And at this point, do pause, and if you're practicing for someone else, for yourself, at this point, imagine that amazing light, love, compassion, the essence of all of that entering into you right now, filling up your entire body like this vase, like a crystal vase. And that light now, as you as a crystal vase, is radiating out amazingly wonderful, compassionate energy. Imagine yourself having a rainbow circle of light around you. And this rainbow circle of light is actually a reflection of the nature of reality. So at this point, you are reflecting out and you're seeing the reflection of yourself, and the meeting points of those two places are creating a circle of rainbow light around you. And there's incredible peace at that place. Incredible peace. So at this point, also visualize anyone for whom you're practicing and merge them into your visualization of yourself as that vase. And have them sitting with you within that circle of rainbow light. And know that they are healed. They've always been healed. See them in their perfection. Okay, let's now do the 10-syllable mantra recitation 3 times. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. The long life mantra also 3 times. Om Tare Tutare Ture Mama Ayar Jana Punye Pitang Kudare Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Mama Ayar Jana Punye Pitang Kudare Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Mama Ayar Jana Punye Pitang Kudare Soha. Remember, we're dropping our stone of aspirations into the pond, the field of pure potential. So take a moment to think about what obstacles you'd like to let go of. You're releasing as that stone drops into the water, and then think about the aspirations that radiate out, and that energy eventually comes back to you in the circle of life. Okay, let's do Tara's prayer 3 times. Illustrious Tara, please be aware of me. Remove my obstacles. Quickly grant my excellent aspirations. Illustrious Tara, please be aware of me. Remove my obstacles. Quickly grant my excellent aspirations. Illustrious Tara, please be aware of me. Remove my obstacles. Quickly grant my excellent aspirations. I'll do the session conclusion. At this point, remember to really release fear. The fear of interbeing and being ultimately interconnected. All phenomenal appearances become the mandala of noble Tara. Everything dissolves into light and dissolves into noble Tara. Noble Tara dissolves into my heart center and protects me. And we'll offer the 7-limb prayer. I bow down in body, speech, and mind. I present offerings both actually arranged and mentally created. I purify all deluded actions. I rejoice in all pure activities. I request you to remain until total enlightenment. I request your wise and compassionate guidance, and I dedicate my merit for the benefit of all beings. Dedication of merit. By this virtuous practice, may I quickly attain the realization of noble Tara. Accomplishing this, may I liberate all sentient beings without exception into the same realization. And closing prayer, last prayer 3 times. May I attain in each and every life the sublime virtues of existence and peace. May I pursue the flawless mindset of altruism, working for the welfare of others on a vast scale. Through this very merit of mine, may every single sentient being eliminate all forms of negativity and practice virtue forevermore. May Supreme Precious Bodhicitta take birth where it has not arisen. Where it has arisen, may it never wane, but continue to grow forevermore. May Supreme Precious Bodhicitta take birth where it has arisen. Where it has arisen, may it never wane, but continue to grow forevermore. May Supreme Precious Bodhicitta take birth where it has not arisen. Where it has arisen, may it never wane, but continue to grow forevermore. Okay, so now just want you to recall to mind the people or animals, the planet, anyone or any being for whom we're practicing today, and think about connecting yourself with the well-being of those people in a way that really expresses joy. Because joy is what carries us through. It's really what carries us through. So at this point, I would ask you to visualize the merit as the positive energy that you've generated here through your practice as joy. And I'd like you to think about what we have here as a circle of joy that's infinitely spinning. It's infinitely radiating joy. And even though we're going to close the mandala of this retreat, know that this type of joy is within you at all times. It really is like the nature of you. It's the nature of life. It's the nature of reality. So we're going to dedicate this joy now as a group, the joy that was generated in practicing together. I'm dedicating the joy that I have in teaching this because I have such great joy in doing this. And just take a moment to think about that. And I'm also going to make a specific dedication on behalf of Bodhicitta Sangha, Heart of Enlightenment Institute, which supports my growth as a teacher so that I could even be here. And also to my teacher, Khenpo Sherab Sangpo, who if he hadn't introduced me to this joy, I would not be able to share it with you on the level that I can today. And if he had not taught me the practice of White Tara, the same thing. So again, we think about these lineages of wisdom traditions that we have, and from teacher to student, and from mother to child, father to child, so many different relationships of interbeing that without people caring enough to pass down their wisdom, we might not remember it. We might not know it. So this is a really beautiful thing. So I would like to dedicate the merit as a teacher today to the long life and vitality of my teacher, Khenpo Sherab Sangpo, and also to the long life and vitality of all the wisdom traditions on this planet, and hope that they continue to flourish and be very vital, and that people make connections with them. So again, imagine for a moment that we're sending out this great merit in the form of joy to the individuals for whom you're practicing, for the meditation communities, the wisdom traditions, and any other sentient being as limitless as space that you possibly can make a connection to. Or just know that as you send it out, they're making a connection to it. And imagine that going out now as the joy of this retreat. And then again, imagine all of that joy being collected back and dissolving into what's called in Buddhism the field of merit. And the field of merit is like an ocean of love and compassion. And so what it's doing is any like drops of realization that you've had, you are dropping in them into the ocean of realization of all sentient beings with awareness. Because you know that if you drop it into that ocean, into that field of love and compassion, there's absolutely no way that it's going to dry up and disappear. So symbolically, place that essence of joy, that drop of your essence of joy that you've realized, and place it into the ocean of wisdom and compassion. And imagine it then being unlimited and always accessible by anyone who at any time prays for support, asks for wisdom in their life, that energy is available to them to appear in any way. It can arise out of that ocean in any way. And then now, we'll just arise back into our normal forms and be very joyful and go have some more tea and cookies or whatever is there. And so thank you so much for practicing and for being here. It's just been such a great joy to be here. So.
Thank you.
Good. And if you have any practice questions ever, contact me. Like I said, my email address is kate@bodhicittasangha.org. That email address is on the postcard that has Khenpo's picture on it. Also, if you go to our website, in the footer of our website, at the bottom of the homepage, is a connection to sign up for the newsletter. We send out a newsletter once a week. Unless I don't get it done, then it might go out once every 2 weeks. It essentially is telling you about upcoming teachings. You can always unsubscribe from it very easily for a link in the bottom. And the other thing is that we have a link to our Facebook community page, which is a place that if you would like to have support and it has practice questions, or if you also want to make a contribution, like you've watched a great film that really inspired you, you could put a link up there and alert everybody else that there's this great film to watch. Or if you've read an article and you really think it's helpful, you can put a link up there to that article. So it's just a way for us to share our different streams of knowledge and wisdom that we have. So there's a link to that in the footer. I'm sorry if you don't like Facebook. It just happens to be a really convenient way for us to do this. And then the other thing is that on the website there are links to each of the meditation communities. So there's a link to Duluth, a link to Ely, and a link to Hibbing. And Marmy, the Hibbing group, also has their own meetup page, is that right? Mm-hmm. Meetup.com, and you also have your own Facebook page as well. So that there are also links on those sub-pages for the websites to those, so that if you want to keep abreast of what's going on in the different satellite communities, rotating around the sun of Khenpo Sherab Sangpo, you can do that. So that's the way to stay connected. And then I also gave you a schedule which has our retreat schedule on there. In Minneapolis, we have every Sunday at Tergar Meditation Center from 10:15 to 11:30. Almost every Sunday we have teachings, a group meditation. Right now until November 10th, they're being led by teaching assistants like myself. November 10th, Kempo starts teaching again, and then he has a full teaching schedule. And here in Ely, you meditate on Saturdays at 9 in the morning. Is that right? And in Hibbing, you meditate from 9:30 to 10:30 on Saturdays. And in Duluth, they meditate on Saturdays and Monday evenings. And I think it's also around 9 or so, but you can check the website to find out. So there's a lot of stuff going on Saturdays, and then we do Sundays. So thank you again so much, and I hope that you will dip your toe into white Tara practice whenever you can. And you can practice swiftly. Tara is also very swift, or you can really extend it out and just bask in the joy of spending time with Tara. So however you want to do it. Oh, sorry. There's also a YouTube channel under Kempo Sherab Sangpo that you can subscribe to, and when you do that, you'll receive all of the videos automatically posted in your email box. You can also, on the homepage of bodhicittasangha.org, that YouTube channel is embedded there, and if you go to the homepage, you're always going to see the most recent video teaching that's been posted, and underneath it are all of the other videos that have been posted, so you can click on whatever you want to watch. There are 80 plus videos there, something like that. There are a lot of teachings there. So if you are not able to get down to Minneapolis and attend teachings in person with Kempo Sherab Sangpo, there are quite a bit of archived teachings there that could keep you busy for a very long time. So, and you can also email practice questions at any time. There's a link in the footer that says practice interviews. And if you come to Minneapolis and you've been practicing and you'd like to have a practice interview with Kempo Sherab Sangpo, you can email practice questions at bodhicittasangha.org. It's a link in the footer. You don't have to remember that. You click on that. You can email then a time or a date when you might be in the Twin Cities and come and have a practice interview. Practice interviews are really helpful. You come in and you present the experiences that you're having with your meditation practice. And because you're bringing those to somebody who has meditated for 30 to 40 years, there are experiences that occur over and over and over again for meditators. They're part of stages in the path. And by presenting that to your teacher, he or she can help fine-tune your meditation in a way that works with your mind of what you need at that moment. And plus, Kempo is just a really nice guy, so he's a nice person to have tea with. So I think that's everything that I can tell you about how to keep connected with the community of meditators that we have in Minnesota. So hopefully many ways, and you'll find some way to keep connected with us. So thank you again. And now tea, time for tea.